Welcome back to the Conscious Consultant Hour, Awakening Humanity. This has been a wonderful show with Ralph White, co-founder of the Open Center. I mean, you're just, for me, it's just such a thrill to have you come on because, I kind of don't get really a lot of chance to talk to people who have been aware of this aspect of life for as long as myself and you, that, it's nice to hear kind of the old stories of reminding of what it was like. I remember one of the few mystical places in New York City. There were two that I knew of as a kid growing up, Weiser's Books and the Magic Shop on Broadway. And oops, 1 second. So it's great to have someone come on who has such perspective. I'm just curious, since you've seen so much over the last 30, 40 years, and you've seen so much change and so much evolution and what's come up and how much difference there is now, where do you see things kind of going from here?
Well, the way I look at it, I think it's an ongoing struggle, really, in a way, between competing worldviews. We definitely have, nobody should be unaware of the regressive forces that we have to deal with in the world, whether it's all the really difficult, ugly forms of religious fundamentalism that we see, no matter what religion it is,
and hate,
or whether it's the primacy of economic values in all spheres with the kind of turbo capitalism we've had on Wall Street and elsewhere. Or
it is, though, kind of interesting how in the current presidential race, not to get political, but just how we have a candidate such as Bernie Sanders being a viable candidate and Donald Trump. I mean, you couldn't get two more opposite people who kind of symbolize the two opposite aspects of society.
That's right. I agree. I mean, I'm a Bernie supporter. Needless to say, we love
we
Bernie.
Are here at the station.
And of course, the thing about Bernie is it doesn't look like he's going to get the nomination, but he started a movement. He's been involved in the revival of the progressive movement. And I just read an editorial yesterday who said that he's galvanized the progressive forces in America in a way nobody has in 70 years. We got to go back to Henry Wallace in the 1940s to find this, and FDR. So I think it's been a magnificent achievement by Bernie, and I love Bernie's environmental awareness and his own spirituality. It seems to be one of the things that's rarely commented upon about Bernie is the Native American influence. When I saw him talk down at that 27,000 person rally in Washington Square, he gave a beautiful talk about the Native Americans and what we owe them. And nobody covered that. But when people ask Bernie about his own spirituality, even though because he grew up Jewish, but I think it's the sense of the interconnectedness of all life, that we're all in this together. That's what animates Bernie, and that's a holistic perspective.
Exactly.
So I think of Bernie as a holistic and ecological thinker in that respect. I'm not saying Hillary isn't either, but Donald Trump. I mean, what can you say? The incarnation of the inflation of the ego to a ludicrous extent, and a parody of what a successful U.S. businessman is supposed to be. But I do think there's a bit of though you could see it there in the campaign, the struggle between a more holistic and ecological perspective on the one hand, and then these regressive forces of the primacy of economic values, inappropriate forms of nationalism all over, tribalism, religious fundamentalism. And a phrase from Rudolf Steiner that I'm very fond of, actually, he called it the superstition of scientific materialism. Of course, scientific materialists like to think that people in the spiritual world, well, we are. I think Rudy got it right. I think that's a superstition. And I think the more we learn about science and the universe, I mean, a week doesn't go by without us discovering that some huge dimension of the universe, whether it's dark matter or gravitational fields speaking to us that we knew nothing about before.
And for me personally, I mean, I teach this in some of my workshops about quantum physics, is the more and more these theoretical physicists and these quantum physicists look closer and closer and closer at what is matter and everything, the more and more it's turning into nothing, into energy. And some of the things I hear quantum physicists say today, mystics have been saying for centuries, if not thousands and thousands of years. And so it does feel like science and spirituality are starting to come together finally.
Yeah, I think most people are locked into an outdated view of science that was put on the shelf really 100 years ago when quantum physics started coming through. But yeah, you've still got that materialist mindset that still predominates in universities and so on. And I think that's why we need places like the Open Center to emerge from outside the establishment. Whenever a culture is in need of renewal, these places emerge that can be expressive of new and creative thinking.
What do you think the challenges for the Open Center these days?
What are the challenges for the Open Center these days? It's there are always economic challenges, because the Open Center is unique. Not unique, we now have our fellow center in Quebec City, but nearly all 90% of centers or more are rural centers. So it's a different economy. You can generate income from board, from lodging, from have a captive audience for body work, etc. The Open Center's its only major source of income is its programming, although we have a bookstore and there are wellness sessions available as well. So I think the Open Center's never got into a position of being on an easy street on that basis, because, and also somewhere like Esalen, a lot of the work, the weeding the gardens, the washing the dishes will be done by work-study people who pay for the privilege of being there. We haven't managed to get anybody to pay us for the privilege of working at the Open Center yet. Maybe we should work on that. So I think there are always economic challenges, but I think it's also how does the Open Center stay true to its vision? As we were saying earlier, this whole way of seeing the world has entered mainstream much more. So it's no longer the weekend workshop for personal growth or personal enrichment as it might have been in the 80s. That's the heart of the Open Center's economy. It began to switch some time ago to long-term in-depth programs. So we're now doing a lot of certificates. We're now a New York State recognized school of holistic and professional studies. So whether it's a certificate in coaching and positive psychology, we just started one in the art of dying and integrative thanatology, which grows out of the work we've done around dying for over 20 years. So I think people are now looking for qualifications, for knowledge that they can really use in their day-to-day work. There are jobs in this field. In these fields, it's not just personal growth and spiritual practice anymore.
Wonderful. Well, Ralph, thank you so much for coming on the show today. If people want to find out more about the Open Center, where can they go?
Yeah, they can go to the opencenter.org. I might mention, as I did earlier, the series of conferences we've done on rediscovering the lost spiritual history of the West. So that conference, An Esoteric Quest for the Mysteries of the North in Iceland, coming up at the end of August. You can go to esotericquest.org. There's my own personal website, ralphwhite.net. And then I should say, for anybody who wants to get the book, probably the simplest, as we have business all over the world, is to go to Amazon.com, and you can just put The Jeweled Highway with one L, spelt the American way, by Ralph White, and that can come up. Or you can go to the publisher's website, Divine Arts Media, and you can get it from them too. And I might also mention The Art of Dying. Artofdying.org. And also, as we had mentioned earlier, centersgathering.org. So I think all of those will give people a pretty comprehensive take on my work and the work of others that I'm involved with.
Wonderful. And also, just to let anybody know, if you're a subscriber to the newsletter, there's a link in my newsletter directly to Amazon to be able to get his book, The Jeweled Highway. So beautiful. Thank you so much. It's been a pleasure having you come in the studio today, Ralph.
Thank you, Sam. It's been a pleasure for me.
You're quite welcome. And of course, for all of our listeners tuning in from all over the world, thank you for listening. And next, Frank About Health is on hiatus this week, perhaps next week too. We'll see when they're coming back. But just if you haven't not yet, please sign up for our newsletter so you can stay on top of all of the latest announcements. Thank you for listening, and we will talk to you next week.